Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today to consider a concept, a theme, a life's path that may appear peculiar to some and yet is profoundly universal in its deep echoes: a woman who walks alone without family. Now, let us pause and reflect on this. It is easy to view this journey as lonely, a void left by the absence of family or companions. But if we open our minds and hearts to the deeper truths of our existence, we might find that, far from a state of solitude, this walk is both a rich and essential part of the human condition. Solitude, when viewed through the lens of human experience, is often misunderstood. It is frequently associated with loneliness or deprivation, a space where one is cut off from the world. However, this perception is incomplete, even misleading. Solitude, in its truest form, is a universal aspect of the human journey, not a condition to be feared or avoided. It is a state of being that transcends our external circumstances and offers us a rare opportunity for introspection, clarity, and growth. From the moment we are born, we begin life as individuals. While we are nurtured within the confines of a family, a society, and various relationships, there is an intrinsic solitude that belongs to us alone. We may seek comfort in others, and indeed human connection is vital for our development, but there is no escaping the fact that the deepest truths about who we are ones we must come to understand on our own. Each person, regardless of their social standing, relationship status, or familial bonds, must ultimately walk through life with an element of solitude. This solitude is not just a fleeting experience, but a constant companion that follows us from birth to death. One of the most profound aspects of solitude is its ability to reveal to us the most fundamental parts of ourselves. In the absence of constant interaction with others, we are left with only our thoughts and emotions, stripped of external influence. This can be both confronting and liberating. When we are alone, we face the quiet call of our inner being. Our minds have the space to wander freely, to reflect, to question, and to discover. In this solitude, we are able to ask ourselves the important questions: who am I? What do I truly believe? What do I want from life? These are not questions that can be answered by others. They are questions only we can answer in the quiet of our own minds. This is where the essence of self-discovery resides. Yet it is not just about discovering who we are in isolation, but also about understanding how we fit into the broader tapestry of life. While solitude often involves being physically alone, it has the paradoxical effect of connecting us more deeply with the larger world. When we step away from the noise and distractions of everyday life, we are better able to appreciate the intricate web of relationships, history, and existence that surrounds us. Solitude invites reflection not just on our own lives, but on the meaning and purpose of life itself. In this sense, it offers us a space for profound spiritual growth. As C.S. Lewis once said, "We are what we believe we are," and it is often in solitude that we come face to face with the beliefs and values that truly define us. Solitude, in its universal nature, is also a mirror that reflects the complexities of the human condition. It forces us to confront the paradoxes of our existence: the simultaneous desire for connection and the need for independence, the yearning for companionship and the necessity of self-reliance. These contradictions are a part of every human being's journey, and solitude is the place where they can be fully recognized and understood. In solitude, we realize that we are simultaneously part of the larger whole of humanity and unique in our individual experiences. We are social creatures, yet we are also solitary beings with our own thoughts, desires, and dreams. Moreover, solitude encourages the cultivation of virtues that might otherwise go unnoticed. When one is alone, the temptations of the world, distractions, superficial conversations, external judgments lose their power. What remains is the raw truth of our character. We are left to face our own strengths and weaknesses, our own faults and virtues, without the external validation or criticism that usually accompanies our social interactions. This self-examination, though often difficult, is an essential part of growth. It is through solitude that we can cultivate humility, patience, and introspection. These virtues allow us to become more aware of our impact on the world around us and the kind of people we wish to become. Furthermore, solitude reveals the nature of time itself. In our busy lives, time often slips through our fingers unnoticed, consumed by the demands of others and the constant influx of information. Yet in solitude, time can slow down, allowing us to be fully present in the moment. This awareness of time brings a new depth to our experiences. When we are alone, we are not merely passing through the hours, but living them fully. The hours become precious, each one filled with the potential for growth, reflection, and discovery. It is in this stillness that we are able to notice the small, often overlooked details of life, the patterns of nature, the beauty of simple moments, the subtleties of our own emotions. Solitude also reveals the interconnectedness of all things. When we are alone, we are not removed from the world, rather, we are more attuned to its rhythms. We begin to recognize that our thoughts, our actions, and our choices are part of a larger cosmic order. This realization can be profoundly humbling. In solitude, we may come to see that we are not isolated or insignificant, but part of a vast and interconnected whole. The more we embrace our solitude, the more we are able to appreciate the interconnectedness of all things. Finally, solitude provides the space for healing. In the chaos of life, it can be difficult to process our emotions, to address our wounds, and to heal from the hurts that we have accumulated over time. Yet, when we find ourselves alone, we are granted the peace necessary for this healing. Solitude allows us to confront the pain we carry and to release it, to forgive ourselves and others, and to make peace with the past. In this sense, solitude is not merely a retreat from the world, it is a way of coming to terms with it, of finding balance and peace within ourselves. In conclusion, solitude is not an enemy to be feared, but a companion that guides us toward greater self-awareness, understanding, and connection. It is a universal experience that each person must encounter, and in encountering it, we come closer to understanding the true nature of our existence. In solitude, we discover not just who we are, but who we can become. It is in these quiet moments of being alone that we find our deepest truths. Self-discovery, that profound and often elusive journey of understanding one's own nature, is perhaps most powerfully realized in moments of solitude. It is in the absence of others, away from the expectations, influences, and judgments of the external world, that we are afforded the opportunity to look inward and uncover the deepest layers of our being. In a world constantly shaped by relationships, social roles, and external validation, the space to truly discover ourselves can feel like a rarity, but it is precisely within solitude that this discovery becomes possible. At the heart of self-discovery is the question, who am I really? This is not the question of who we are as defined by others, by our families, our friends, our roles in society, but who we are in our essence, beyond the surface. To answer this question, we must first step away from the noise of the world and the constant expectations placed upon us. Society teaches us to define ourselves by our relationships, by our jobs, by our successes or failures. But in the quiet of solitude, we begin to peel away those layers and examine what remains underneath. It is only when we are alone that we can confront the core of our being, separate from the projections and perceptions of others. The absence of others forces us to come to terms with ourselves in ways that are impossible when we are constantly surrounded by voices, opinions, and judgments. It is easy to define ourselves in terms of the roles we play for others: a mother, a friend, a colleague, a partner, but those roles are transient. They depend on our interactions with others and change depending on the circumstances. In solitude, we are not defined by any role other than the one we give ourselves. There is a purity to this process. We are no longer shaped by the expectations of others, and for the first time we are free to ask ourselves without fear or shame what it is we truly desire, what we truly value, and what we want to become. This process of self-discovery is not always comfortable. In fact, it can be quite unsettling. When we are alone, we are confronted with our own thoughts, and often our deepest fears, regrets, and insecurities come to the surface. These are the aspects of ourselves we often try to bury, distracted by the constant busyness of life and the presence of others. But when we are alone, there is nowhere to hide. We must face these uncomfortable truths. Yet it is precisely through this confrontation that growth occurs. The ability to acknowledge our flaws, to face our fears, and to accept ourselves in our entirety, both light and dark, is the foundation of self-discovery. Without this process of acceptance, self-discovery remains shallow and incomplete. In solitude, we are forced to reckon with the full range of our emotions. Without external distractions, we are given the space to examine our emotional responses to the world around us. We may begin to realize patterns in our emotional reactions. Perhaps we are quicker to anger than we thought, or more prone to sadness in certain situations, or perhaps we discover a hidden well of joy that we've been too busy to notice. These realizations are often uncomfortable, but they are the first step in gaining a true understanding of ourselves. By acknowledging our emotions and reflecting on them, we begin to understand what drives us, what motivates us, and what we truly care about. As we continue on this journey of self-discovery, we begin to notice the things that matter most to us, those things that resonate with our soul at a deep, visceral level. When we are surrounded by the opinions and desires of others, it is easy to lose sight of what we value. We may find ourselves living according to someone else's script, chasing after goals that are not our own, or seeking validation from others in ways that ultimately leave us unfulfilled. But in solitude, we are forced to confront our own desires, independent of the influence of those around us. This is where true clarity emerges. What do we want from life? What makes us feel most alive? What do we wish to contribute to the world? The answers to these questions can only be found in solitude, away from the distractions and pressures of everyday life. Moreover, solitude allows us to reconnect with the person we were before the world began to shape us. When we are constantly surrounded by others, we are often swept along by the tide of external expectations, social norms, and familial pressures. We may forget the passions we once had, the dreams we once held, or the values that once defined us. Solitude offers us the opportunity to reconnect with that more authentic version of ourselves, the version that existed before the world told us who we should be. In this space, we are reminded of the things that once brought us joy, the things that once felt most true to our hearts. It is here that we begin to rediscover our authentic self, untouched by the layers of expectation and socialization. In solitude, we also gain the freedom to reimagine who we want to become. Often we are so caught up in the demands of the present that we fail to imagine a future that aligns with our true desires. We live in a state of constant reaction, responding to the needs of others and the circumstances of life. But in solitude, we have the time and space to dream of a life that is uniquely our own, a life that is shaped by our deepest values and aspirations. This freedom to reimagine ourselves is a powerful and liberating aspect of self-discovery. We are not bound by the constraints of our past or the expectations of others. We are free to choose the path that resonates most with who we truly are. Solitude also teaches us to trust ourselves. In a world where external validation is often sought after, we can become overly reliant on the opinions of others. We seek approval, reassurance, and guidance from those around us, often neglecting the wisdom that resides within us. But in the absence of others, we are forced to trust our own instincts and judgment. We learn to listen to the quiet voice within, the voice that has always been there, waiting to be heard. This is a crucial step in the process of self-discovery, learning to trust ourselves, to believe in our own inner guidance, and to make decisions that are in alignment with our truest self. Self-discovery is not a destination, but an ongoing journey, one that requires patience, introspection, and a willingness to embrace both the light and the dark within us. It is a journey that, while sometimes uncomfortable, is ultimately transformative. In solitude, we are given the rare opportunity to explore the depths of who we are, independent of the expectations and pressures of the outside world. And it is through this process of self-discovery that we come to understand not only who we are, but who we are capable of becoming. The courage to choose one's path is perhaps one of the most significant, yet often overlooked, aspects of the human experience. It requires an individual to look inward and decide with conviction which direction their life will take, regardless of the external pressures, expectations, or obstacles that may arise along the way. In a world filled with countless influences from societal norms and family expectations to the unspoken judgments of peers, it takes tremendous courage to step away from the crowd and pursue the path that feels authentic to oneself. This courage is not just about making choices in the face of adversity, it is about embracing the uncertainty of life and committing to a course of action that aligns with one's deepest values and desires. At its core, the courage to choose one's path is the courage to define one's own life. In a society where conformity is often rewarded and individuality can sometimes be seen as a threat, it takes a great deal of bravery to chart a course that is distinctly one's own. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by external forces: our families, our communities, our schools, and later, our careers and relationships. These influences are not inherently negative, they help us form our identities and navigate the world. However, they can also create a sense of obligation, a sense that we must live our lives according to the expectations of others. Choosing one's path requires the courage to resist this pressure and instead to honor the voice within that calls us to be true to ourselves. The first step in choosing one's path is acknowledging that the decision to do so is entirely within our hands. This recognition is both empowering and daunting. It means we are responsible for the direction our lives take, which can feel like both a blessing and a burden. It is far easier to passively accept the path that others have laid out for us, or to follow the well-worn trail that society has paved. To make a conscious choice is to acknowledge that we must take ownership of our lives, to accept that the choices we make today will shape our futures in ways we cannot fully predict. This requires a leap of faith, a willingness to step into the unknown, trusting that the path we choose will ultimately lead to the fulfillment we seek. In many ways, the courage to choose one's path involves facing our deepest fears. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of making the wrong decision. These are all natural and common fears that arise when we step outside the familiar and venture into the unknown. The fear of failure in particular can be paralyzing. We may worry that if we choose the wrong path, we will fall short of our goals or face ridicule from others. But what often gets overlooked is that failure is not the opposite of success, it is a necessary part of the journey. In choosing our own path, we must be willing to accept that mistakes will be made, that not every decision will lead to immediate success, and that failure is simply a stepping stone toward growth. The courage to choose one's path is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. In choosing one's path, we must also confront the possibility of being misunderstood. When we decide to follow our own course, it is natural that others may not always understand or agree with our choices. This can be especially true when our path diverges from the norms or expectations of the society or community we belong to. The courage to choose one's path often means accepting the fact that we may face criticism, alienation, or even isolation from others. The desire for approval and acceptance is deeply ingrained in all of us, and choosing a path that goes against the grain can stir feelings of doubt and insecurity. However, it is in these moments that the courage to stand firm in our decisions becomes crucial. We must learn to listen to the voice within, the voice that calls us to follow our own truth, rather than the voices of others that seek to pull us in directions that are not aligned with who we truly are. This act of choosing one's path is also an exercise in trust in oneself, trust in the process of life, and trust in the unknown. It requires us to believe that, even when the way forward is unclear, the act of choosing a direction is enough to set things in motion. Often we spend so much time contemplating the future, weighing every possible outcome. that we become paralyzed by indecision. We wait for certainty, for a guarantee that the path we choose will lead us to success and fulfillment. But the truth is that no path is ever truly free of uncertainty, and waiting for absolute clarity often means staying stuck in place. The courage to choose one's path is, in many ways, the courage to act in the face of uncertainty, to trust that the steps we take today will lead to something meaningful, even if we cannot yet see the full picture. Moreover, choosing one's path requires a deep understanding of one's own values, desires, and priorities. It is not enough to choose a path simply because it appears easier, more popular, or more socially acceptable. The courage to choose one's path means being honest with oneself about what truly matters. What are the values that define us? What do we want to contribute to the world? What kind of life do we want to build for ourselves? These are the questions that should guide our decisions, not the fear of failure or the desire for external approval. When we choose a path that is aligned with our deepest values and desires, we are more likely to find fulfillment, even if the journey is difficult or the outcome uncertain. Choosing one's path is also an ongoing process. Life is not a one-time decision, it is a series of choices that we make every day. The courage to choose one's path does not end with a single decision. It is a continuous commitment to living authentically, to making choices that reflect who we truly are, and to adapting and evolving as we grow. As we move forward on our journey, we will undoubtedly face new challenges, new crossroads, and new opportunities. The courage to choose one's path is a lifelong commitment to staying true to ourselves, even when the road ahead is unclear or difficult. In conclusion, the courage to choose one's path is not an isolated act of bravery. It is a fundamental aspect of living an authentic and fulfilling life. It requires us to trust ourselves, to face our fears, to stand firm in our decisions, and to remain true to our values and desires. It is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. The courage to choose one's path is not simply about making decisions, it is about embracing the uncertainty of life and committing to a journey that is uniquely our own. Grace in isolation is a concept that is often misunderstood. In a world that constantly emphasizes connection, companionship, and external validation, the idea that grace can be found in solitude may seem counterintuitive. However, there is a profound beauty to be discovered when we embrace grace in isolation, a beauty that is both subtle and transformative. This beauty emerges not from the absence of others, but from the quiet space where we are forced to confront ourselves, reflect on our lives, and find a deeper connection with who we truly are. Grace, at its core, is a state of kindness, compassion, and unearned favor. It is an elegance of being that arises not from any external accomplishment or effort, but from a deep sense of inner peace, acceptance, and humility. When we are isolated, away from the distractions of the world, we are granted the space to access this grace within ourselves. It is in moments of solitude that we are able to release the demands and pressures that the world places upon us. In isolation, grace becomes less about pleasing others or conforming to expectations and more about cultivating a sense of harmony and ease within ourselves. One of the most striking aspects of grace in isolation is the way it enables us to practice self-compassion. In the hustle and bustle of life, we often forget to show kindness to ourselves. We are quick to judge, criticize, and demand perfection, constantly striving to meet the expectations of those around us. However, in isolation, there is no one else to impress or compete with. It is in this solitude that we can begin to soften the inner critic and extend grace to ourselves. We become aware of our flaws, our imperfections, and our vulnerabilities, but instead of condemning ourselves for them, we learn to accept and embrace them. This self-compassion is the foundation of grace, for it is only when we show ourselves kindness that we can extend that same kindness to others. In isolation, we are given the rare opportunity to cultivate a deeper relationship with ourselves, one based on love, understanding, and grace. Grace in isolation also allows us to find peace in our own company. Many people fear being alone because they associate solitude with loneliness, emptiness, or a sense of disconnection. However, grace transforms this experience. Instead of feeling abandoned or isolated, we learn to savor the peace that comes with being alone. There is a quiet beauty in solitude that allows us to reconnect with our inner selves, to listen to our thoughts, and to reflect on our lives without the influence of external distractions. In this stillness, grace teaches us to be present in the moment, to appreciate the simple joys of life that are often overlooked in the rush of daily activities. We learn to find contentment in our own company, realizing that we are enough as we are without the need for validation or companionship. Moreover, grace in isolation teaches us the power of patience. In the modern world, we are accustomed to constant stimulation and instant gratification. We live in an age of technology and social media, where we are always connected and always on. The idea of waiting, of sitting in stillness without the constant influx of information, can feel uncomfortable and foreign. Yet it is in these moments of stillness that grace can flourish. In isolation, we are forced to slow down, to relinquish the need for constant activity, and to embrace the quiet rhythms of life. It is in this patient waiting that we come to understand the deeper flow of existence. We learn that not everything must be rushed, that there is beauty in the pauses, and that grace often emerges in the spaces between action. It is in these moments of pause that we are able to listen to our hearts and souls, to hear the whispers of wisdom that can only be discerned in silence. Another aspect of grace in isolation is the freedom it offers. When we are alone, we are free from the judgments and expectations of others. There is no one to impress, no roles to play, no facades to maintain. This freedom allows us to explore who we truly are, unencumbered by societal norms or the desires of those around us. In isolation, we can shed the layers of identity that have been imposed upon us and reconnect with the essence of who we are. We are able to explore our own passions, desires, and dreams without fear of rejection or failure. Grace in this sense becomes a liberating force. It frees us from the need for external validation and allows us to fully embrace our authentic selves. In this freedom, we find a deep sense of peace, for we no longer feel the need to measure ourselves against others or to conform to the standards of society. Grace in isolation teaches us to trust ourselves, to honor our own path, and to be unapologetically true to who we are. Furthermore, grace in isolation offers the opportunity for spiritual growth. In moments of solitude, we are often able to tap into a deeper sense of connection with the divine, with nature, or with the universe. Without the distractions of everyday life, we are more open to the mysteries of existence and the subtle currents that flow beneath the surface of reality. In isolation, we may experience moments of profound insight, moments when the veil of ordinary life is lifted, and we glimpse something greater than ourselves. This spiritual grace is not something that can be forced or manufactured. It arises naturally when we allow ourselves to be present and open to the flow of life. Through isolation, we come to understand that grace is not something we achieve or earn, but something we allow to enter our lives by opening ourselves to the quiet, unspoken truths that exist beyond our ego and our desires. Grace in isolation also fosters a deeper sense of gratitude. When we are surrounded by others, it is easy to take the beauty of life for granted, to overlook the small blessings that surround us every day. However, in solitude, we become more attuned to the wonders of existence. We notice the changing of the seasons, the beauty of a sunset, the sound of birdsong in the morning. We become aware of the simple joys that can easily go unnoticed in the busyness of life. In this awareness, we are filled with gratitude for the moments of peace, for the opportunity to reflect, and for the grace that fills the spaces of our lives. This gratitude deepens our connection with the world around us and reinforces the beauty of grace itself. In conclusion, grace in isolation is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced and cherished. It is in the solitude that we discover the deepest aspects of ourselves, where we find the space to heal, reflect, and grow. Grace in this context is not about perfection or external validation, but about cultivating a deep sense of acceptance, peace, and self-compassion. In isolation, we are given the rare opportunity to reconnect with our true selves and to experience the beauty that comes from embracing the quiet, graceful moments of life. It is through this grace that we find the strength to move forward, not in spite of our isolation, but because of it. The potential for greater connection with others is often overlooked in a world that thrives on the hustle and bustle of social interaction, the rapid exchange of information, and the constant pursuit of external validation. Yet there is a profound truth that suggests that deeper connections with others can be achieved through the quieter, more intentional ways we engage with the world. This potential is rooted not in superficial exchanges or fleeting moments of interaction, but in the genuine, authentic connections that emerge when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, open, and present with one another. It is in this space of true connection that our relationships transcend the transactional and become meaningful, nurturing, and transformative. In many ways, we live in an era that has redefined connection through technology. Social media, instant messaging, and virtual meetings allow us to stay in constant contact with people around the world. These tools have made it easier than ever to connect, but have they allowed us to truly understand each other? Despite the increased access to others, many feel lonelier than ever. There is a growing sense that while we may be surrounded by more people, we are losing the depth of our interactions. The potential for deeper connection lies not in increasing the frequency of our communications, but in transforming the quality of those interactions. True connection requires more than a quick message or a casual like on a post. It requires listening, empathy, and a willingness to be fully present in the moment. One of the key components of building greater connection with others is the willingness to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness in a world that values strength and independence. We are often taught to guard ourselves, to present a polished version of who we are, and to protect our innermost feelings from judgment. However, the ability to open up to others, to share our fears, struggles, and uncertainties, is the foundation of genuine connection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for others to do the same. This mutual sharing of our humanity fosters trust, intimacy, and understanding. It is in these moments of vulnerability that we often find the deepest connections with others, as we realize that we are not alone in our struggles, but that we share a common experience of being human. The potential for greater connection also arises from the act of listening, truly listening to others. In a world filled with distractions, where multitasking has become the norm, it is easy to overlook the power of active, undivided attention. Listening is an art that requires patience, focus, and empathy. When we truly listen to another person, we do more than just hear their words. We take the time to understand their feelings, their perspective, and their experience. In doing so, we acknowledge their humanity and affirm their worth. Too often we are more interested in speaking than in listening, more focused on getting our point across than on understanding where the other person is coming from. Yet it is through listening that we create a space for dialogue, for mutual understanding, and for connection. Listening allows us to meet others where they are, without judgment or preconceptions, and to truly engage with them on a deeper level. Empathy, the ability to feel and understand another person's emotions, is another critical component of connection. Empathy allows us to bridge the gap between ourselves and others, to see the world through their eyes, and to feel what they are feeling. It is an essential tool for building relationships based on trust and respect. When we show empathy, we validate the experiences of others and communicate that we care about their well-being. Empathy creates a sense of shared humanity and fosters a deep sense of belonging. It allows us to transcend the boundaries that often divide us, whether they be cultural, social, or ideological, and to connect with others on a deeper emotional level. The potential for greater connection is realized when we not only understand others intellectually, but also connect with them emotionally, feeling their joys, their sorrows, and their hopes as if they were our own. Another powerful way to foster greater connection is by practicing presence. In a world filled with distractions, it is easy to be physically present but emotionally distant. We may find ourselves in a room full of people, but our minds are elsewhere, consumed by our own thoughts, anxieties, and responsibilities. True connection requires that we be fully present with others, that we give them our undivided attention and focus. Being present means putting aside our distractions, suspending our judgments, and simply engaging in the moment with the person in front of us. It is about offering our time, our attention, and our energy in a way that communicates that the other person matters. When we are fully present, we not only strengthen our connection with others, but we also enrich our own experience of the world, finding meaning and significance in the interactions we have. The potential for greater connection is also realized when we learn to accept others for who they are without trying to change or fix them. Acceptance is a powerful force in building relationships because it communicates that we value others just as they are. When we accept someone, we create a space where they can be themselves, free from the pressure to conform or meet our expectations. This kind of acceptance fosters trust and respect, and it allows relationships to grow and evolve organically. When we stop focusing on what others should be and begin to appreciate who they are, we open the door to deeper, more authentic connections. Acceptance does not mean agreeing with everything the other person says or does, but rather recognizing their inherent worth as a human being and allowing them to show up as their true selves. Additionally, the potential for connection is enhanced when we show appreciation and gratitude for the people in our lives. In the rush of daily life, it is easy to take others for granted, to overlook the small gestures of kindness and support that make a difference in our lives. Expressing gratitude for the people we care about strengthens our bond with them and communicates that we value their presence. Whether it is a simple thank you or a heartfelt gesture, expressing appreciation fosters goodwill and deepens our connection. Gratitude shifts our focus from what is lacking to what is present, from what divides us to what unites us, and it helps to cultivate a sense of joy and fulfillment in our relationships. Finally, greater connection is also cultivated through shared experiences. While technology has enabled us to communicate across vast distances, there is a unique power in coming together in person, in sharing moments of joy, laughter, and even sorrow. And these shared experiences create lasting memories and provide a foundation for deeper relationships. Whether through travel, shared hobbies, or meaningful conversations, the experiences we have together shape our bonds and allow us to connect on a deeper level. These moments of connection, whether big or small, are the building blocks of meaningful relationships and offer the potential for a deeper understanding of one another. In conclusion, the potential for greater connection with others is not found in the number of people we know or the frequency of our interactions, but in the depth of our engagement with one another. True connection requires vulnerability, empathy, listening, acceptance, and presence. It is about showing up for others, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. When we embrace these qualities in our relationships, we open the door to a deeper, more meaningful connection with others, one that transcends the surface and touches the heart. It is in these moments of true connection that we discover the richness and beauty of human relationships, and it is through these connections that we are able to find a sense of belonging and purpose in the world.